Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Ivan, for coming and making your submission. As you know, I live in the Heights, and I am quite aware of the problem and concerned about it. First question I have is respecting the traffic circle at Rosser and Albert. That was my suggestion, and I asked the staff to look into it. It's a temporary traffic circle, and it was an experiment. I was hoping it would be successful and that we could then put a number of them in on Albert Street. So can you just restate your position on that? Why don't you like that traffic circle?
Well, essentially, I'm a commuting cyclist, and I'm very familiar with traffic circles and where they're effective and where they're not, because they're quite commonly found on bicycle routes. And from my experience and from my understanding of the purpose of traffic circles is that where there is no prior control at an intersection, in the absence of anything else, a yield sign or a stop sign, a traffic circle serves a very important purpose in modulating traffic to avoid accidents, but its purpose is to keep traffic flowing. We had a four-way stop at that intersection, which was far more effective. Even though people weren't stopping, the traffic is now moving at a faster pace and has been enabled on Albert Street by that initiative. Now, Councillor Evans has probably been the sole person who's picked up the issue and said, what's happening on this? He brings forward a suggestion, and unfortunately, I think that staff took that situation and said, well, our directive is to keep traffic flowing, and Councillor Evans is suggesting a traffic circle, and that would certainly enable traffic on Albert Street. Let's go for it. And that's what happened. And unfortunately, we weren't able to talk to the issue before it got passed by the Traffic and Safety Committee or Council. And that's why we're here tonight.
No, Ivan, you're aware that Albert Street is a local collector. It's not actually just a residential street. Mm-hmm. So I'm not clear. What exactly do you want us to do about Albert Street? Because we obviously can't just block it off.
Well, as I understand it from a meeting with staff back in 2005, Peter Livermaggy had informed us, we asked, what's the purpose of Albert Street? What's the purpose of a local collector? And he said, well, the purpose of that street is to get traffic to and from the next two major routes, which in our case, where we are located, would be Willingdon and Gilmore. They're not intended to deliver traffic from Capitol Hill all the way to Boundary, or from Port Moody to Boundary via Albert Street. So our initiative to put in the median dividers, which are used effectively in Vancouver, would essentially ensure that Albert Street is used as a local collector and not as a thoroughfare. So that's what our initiative is driving towards.
Where would you put these median dividers?
Well, if you look at what's done in Vancouver, like for instance, we've got one traffic circle right now at the corner of Rosser and Albert. One of anything isn't going to solve the problem. There has to be a plan put in place that ensures that this traffic is not just shifted onto other side streets. And so what's probably going to be needed on Albert, from our assessment, from living there and traveling the route daily, walking, cycling, driving, you'll probably need 2 or 3 median dividers, one between Willingdon and Gilmore, one between Gilmore and, well, probably 2 between Gilmore and Boundary, to discourage the rat running and keep the traffic on Hastings.
Last question. From what you said, am I right that what you really want is a traffic control plan similar to what is between Renfrew and Commercial Drive north of Hastings for the area between Boundary and Willingdon north of Hastings? Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, essentially, we're working with the other groups in the area in Capitol Hill, like I said earlier, in Oxford, the Heights Merchants Association, to ensure that this isn't just shifted onto another street. There needs to be a comprehensive plan, as I say, before all these other developments come into play and we have far more traffic than we do now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Worship. I was interested in trying to follow in your presentation tonight. Like, you had some very specific recommendations, i.e. the Rosser Circle, which I happened to just go around this afternoon, and believe me, a lot of people didn't understand what they were doing. Was afraid of when approaching it because there were so many cars. Like, it was a mess. Anyway, but you have, like, your the package that we got refers
Yes.
to a a petition and a whole bunch of specific proposals, and
Yes.
I don't seem to have that. Was that some time ago, or was that just
that
recently?
was-
I don't have the petition.
I'm not sure. I forwarded it on to the
I have some
clerk's
attachments.
office, and I'm not sure whether what I have is the same as what you have, so I can't really comment on that.
I have attachments A, B, C, and D.
Okay, on attachment A, do you see a diagram there that looks something like that?
Yep.
Okay. That essentially I can walk through if you'd like in terms of what our proposals were in 2004.
Well, I think, Council, we've got another delegation
Yeah.
that's waiting for us. I've suggested that, we can't do the work of the committees here in the council chamber, is that I've suggested we send this to committee so that they can examine it, where there's more of an opportunity to ask questions and be able to go through it thoroughly. I mean, I don't want
I
to
guess
restrict the discussion, but I mean, going through the whole of the brief after we've spent time on the delegation is probably not, is trying to do the committee work at council.
And I don't want to do that, Your Worship. I just want to know just specifically what recommendations these 100 people who signed the petition are supportive of. And if that is somewhere, I'd like to receive that. That's all.
There was an addendum that was dropped on your desk tonight. I'd hope to be able to show you on an overhead. There's 3 maps. I'd be happy to go over that with anyone over the phone or in person. It details, it's a map of what happens on Franklin and Vancouver. It's a map of the fire routes, and there's a third one on North Burnaby and the RatRunning routes that are used very commonly today. And I'd be happy to go through that with you offline if you wish.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Your Worship, or Mr.
Kanata.
Canetta, just one question. I'm curious as to what the time span is on the video.
The time span on that video, that was all done in 2004, approximately within a 2-month time window.
It's a cut and paste of various days? It's not
Yes,
one,
definitely. We essentially set up the camera on a balcony at Cranberry Common, and we let it run for an hour, and we did that for, I don't know, 2 or 3 days over a 2-week period for 1 hour, 2-hour intervals,
Okay, thank
and
you.
then put that together.